Hey guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today's video, oh my god, I've been waiting to receive this palette, and as soon as I received it, I wanted to immediately record it. And today we're going to talk about the newest Natasha Denona, the golden palette. This is the cover. It also comes with all the shade names behind the palette, but you know, we are actually just waiting to open this palette. This is how the palette looks. It has that wavy kind of a texture, but my favorite part, as soon as I saw this, I was immediately like, oh no, am I gonna store this or is it gonna be a problem to store? But let me show you. It'll just store exactly perfectly, and that's basically because all the divots in the waves are inwards, so that is A++. They definitely gave a thought while designing this palette, but wait till you see the inside, because inside is where the magic happens. I have not even touched this palette, but look at the color story. This, I feel like, is like a warmer, neutral kind of like a neutral palette, but it leans a little bit more warm. And if you see very carefully, apart from like this gold shade and this gold shade, rest of the palette is like perfectly neutral. And that's my favorite thing about this palette, because I don't wear a lot of like yellow golds on my eyes. I would occasionally dip into it, but that's not like my preferred shade to put on my eyes. But the rest of the palette looks absolutely amazing. I'll explain all the shade names and like when I'll apply it on my eyes, because I'm gonna show you like 3 looks using this palette. I am gonna show 2 different eye looks using this palette, and you'll definitely see all of this shades in action. Also, all of the Natasha Denona palettes have like holes behind it, so you can pop and mix and match any of the Natasha Denona palettes. Now this palette is a midi palette and it retails for $69 like any of her other palettes. And if you are interested in buying this palette or anything from Natasha Denona's website, you can use my code Smithy Sony to save 15% off on their website. And if you use it, I thank you very much. I am an affiliate with the brand, but this, I bought it with my own money. So is all the other Natasha Denona palettes that I have in my collection. Now this is a revamped and a revised version of the gold palette. I do not own the gold palette. Gold palette was like $129, and at that time, even this time, like currently, it is very difficult for me to like invest in a $129 palette. Like that is a lot of money. Not saying that $69 is not much. This is definitely a lot also, but I prefer this kind of packaging from Natasha Denona. Now let me show you this palette in the outside lighting as well as the inside lighting, so you can see all the shifts, the dimension, everything in it. The first shade, Milko, is matte cream to powder off-white shade. Nubia is a sparkling foil gold nude champagne. Pana is a matte cream to powder beige. Arya is matte light dusty sand. Fizzy is a sparkling wet effect golden nude. Varis is a metallic medium antique brass. Aura is a metallic golden ivory. I'm so excited to test that shade out. Teak is a matte medium dusty caramel. Kava is a sparkling champagne gold. Sandstone is a matte medium ochre. Aurum is a metallic muted gold. Log is a matte dark brown. Oro is a metallic warm gold. Flesh is a matte light warm nude, and Alchemist is a metallic brass. And I personally, when I'm like opening this palette, the shades that jump out to me is Nubia, Fizzy, Kava, and Alchemist. These have extra sparkle and shine, and I hope you can see that. This shade, this Kava shade, and this Alchemist shade. And I definitely can see like the difference in the undertones. Obviously, this is a monochromatic palette. You cannot expect any other like shades out of this palette. It is like a very monochromatic golden neutral palette. If I can change something, I would have changed either Arya or Sandstone to one shade and put another deepening shade in this palette. Maybe it is that black. I don't know, but I would have preferred one more deepening shade in this palette, because the only deepening shade that we have is this shade Log, and I personally feel for my medium tan skin tone, I am going to dip into that Log every time I use this palette. Let's begin playing with this palette, because I cannot wait one more second. I'm going to first dip into that shade Pana, which is a cream to powder formula. This picks up very nicely on this Refa Synthetic Brush BO3, and I am going to just clean underneath my brow bone and then just blend it down to even out my eyelid shade. This would come in very handy to clean up any shade of this palette, at least for me and my skin tone. I feel like that would be amazing and very, very handy. Like immediately you can see the difference. A very light nudie tone, warm tone shade. But because it's cream to powder, it blends extremely, extremely nicely. Now once we have that base all set up, let's start off building the shades. Okay, let's start off with this shade Sandstone, and I'm gonna take that basically as my transitioning shade. I don't know how much you can see it. I can see it as a transitional shade, and one shade darker than me, like my tone. Can you see that? So that is Sandstone, and so far it's blending very nicely on top of that cream to powder shade that we applied earlier, the Aria shade, no, Pana shade. Now on the other eye, let's use another shade just to see if there's a difference or not. I am going to dip into that Aria shade because I just wanted to see if there's a tone difference here or not, because it looks very similar. So I'm going to take another brush just so that I don't contaminate the shades. So this is Aria now. Let's apply it again like a transitional shade. There's a slight tone difference, but on my skin tone, can I see it like a major difference? Not really. Again, I stick to my opinion. I feel like that Sandstone shade is a tad bit warmer than this Aria shade, but again, a tad, like nothing of like a major difference. But is it performing well? Yes, for sure. So those are the shades. I like the way it's looking. I really love a neutral eye on me. So now let's start deepening up the eye look. I'm taking my refer number 1 and I'm gonna dip into, actually before that, let's see if I take the shade Flesh, how is it gonna look? Because Flesh looks like my skin tone shade, but a little lighter. Okay, Fresh definitely has that peachiness coming throughout it. So I'm just taking that on the edge of that Sandstone shade as well as that Aria shade. Okay. Now let's take refer number 1 and I'm gonna dip into this shade Log, and then I'm gonna melt it with this shade, which is Teak. Actually, let's take Teak first just to see the difference. So this is Teak. I'm gonna place that in the outer corner of the eye. Teak is definitely more like a mid-tone, warm brown shade. There you go. You can see that? Definitely lacking depth, I would say. At least for my medium skin tone. I cannot even imagine like on a deeper skin tone. I am repeating myself. I don't have that gold palette with me. But I do have the Alter Ego, I think it was called Sahara palette, which duped the Natasha Denona gold palette. And that had a bunch of like deeper shades. And people say that it's like a good dupe to the Natasha Denona palette. But if that's the case, then I'm seeing this as lacking depth for sure. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a smaller brush, go into that Teak shade again that we applied right now, and I'm gonna build that. See, it picks up really nice on the brush. I'm gonna take that on the lower lash line, going into that Log shade, which is that deeper brown shade, the deepest brown shade actually in the palette. I'm gonna take that on the extreme outer corners of the eye. Now because we have applied so much mattes already, I don't know what is that the reason. I definitely can see the depth, but yes, for sure I feel like this palette would have definitely been more versatile if it had more number of deepening up shades. And it doesn't need to be like monochromatic, right? Like a deeper maroon burgundy shade would have been amazing with that palette, with this palette. Just because I feel like that golds and maroons go so well and so elegant on the eyes too. That would have popped this palette too. Yeah, in the near future I can definitely do like build my own perfect golden palette. So we have the depth that we are looking for. Just taking a crease brush and just blending the edges. Okay, I don't know how different it's gonna look actually. At this point I feel like I definitely can do different placement of the eye look, but I feel like you can see all the shades how it's looking on me right now. Let's take that shade Mliko. There's a spelling mistake. No, it's Mliko. I thought it's Milko. This one, the first shade in the palette, Mliko. And this, I'm gonna plop that right underneath the brow bone for a pop. You can immediately see that. Can you see that? This versus this eye. And these cream to powder formula, if you apply these shades with like a denser brush, it performs really, really nicely. But if you pick this up on like a loose fluffy brush, it won't perform as much. So just a tip that I have noticed myself. Okay, now let's take a little sticky primer. So I'm going to take this Unearthly Cosmetics Glimmer Grasp and just take a little bit on the back of my hand. I'm going to just apply it where there's blank space. Okay, I'm going to take the Alchemist shade, this one, and I'm going to take that on a flatter brush, flatter but denser brush. This is BK Beauty A501, and I'm going to take the shade Alchemist, this one, the brassy shade, and this is defined as a metallic brass shade. So I'm going to take that on the outer corners of the eyelid and melting it with that log shade that we applied. It is picking up nicely on the brush. Nothing out of the world, but I definitely can see it building up too. So which is really nice. Let's do two different eye looks, okay? I really want to use the shade Kava. Oh my gosh, that's stunning. Should I use Kava or Nubia? Let's do Nubia first. Yeah, let's do Nubia first, this shade, just because I feel like it will go with Alchemist really well, and it looks a little bit more similar in the camera and even in the pan. So let's see if there is a little bit of difference or not. I am taking Nubia with my fingers. Hopefully it will not pan. Okay. Oh, look at that. Picks up very nicely with the fingers. And Nubia is a sparkling metallic, sparkling wet formula. What does it call? Sparkling foiled nude gold shade. And these sparkling shades apply really well with the fingers, as well as the wet effect formula. Oh, this is stunning. Okay, there you go. Yes, definitely there's a difference in Nubia as well as the Alchemist shade. Alchemist is definitely more brassy and a little bit more on the deeper side. I like it. For the inner corners, let's take the shade Kava actually. And Kava is a sparkling champagne gold shade. And I'm going to take that on my Morphe Jaclyn Hill GH42. Like a smaller, flatter brush. Hope you can see that. And I'm going to take that in the inner corners. Oh yeah. Yep. That's so pretty. It has that little bit of twinkling effect. All of this, like on my eye, I mean, it's just a light pale champagne gold shade, okay? Don't expect a lot of variety out of these shades. Yeah, it's pretty, it's beautiful, it's blending really nicely, but don't expect variety. Now for the next eye, let's take the shade Aurum and then Oro. Aurum definitely is more, I would say, like a cool tone gold. Does that make sense? Like it's not that yellow gold. It's a mix of like a yellow and muted yellow gold, I would say. like it's not yellow, it's not screaming on my face. This is the kind of golds that I would wear if I'm wearing golds actually. But Oro seems like a super yellow gold. So ideally, if you are a warm tone person, I feel like Oro is the only shade that you would feel like it's like yellow gold, but rest everything is like more on the neutral side. I like it, don't get me otherwise, but you're not getting variety for sure. Okay, I'm gonna dip into this shade Oro. Let's do that with our fingers and see, because this is definitely a metallic shade and I don't have any problem using metallic shade with my fingers because I feel like it's only cream to powder formula that Natasha Denona like pans. I'm using the shade Flesh again, this one, just to blend the edges. And going back into the Log shade, I feel like you guys do appreciate my swatches, so let's do that. And next, after finishing this eye look, I'm going to church. Am I going with 2 different eye looks? I feel like people won't even come to know. Okay, whatever. Okay, the next shade that I want to use is the shade Fizzy, and this is the Sparkling Wet formula, which I love. I absolutely love the Sparkling Wet formula of hers, which she introduced very recently with I Need a Nude eyeshadow palette. I'm gonna just plop that on top, and I don't know how much you can see it. It just gives that twinkle of shine. Yeah, see? I'm gonna take this Oro shade, this one, the yellow gold shade, and I'm gonna take that on the lower lash line. That's where I think it'll pop. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing on the other eyes too, just to even it out. There are 2 shades that I did not use in the palette, which is Varis and this shade, which is Aura. I am going to take that Aura shade, which is that white shade of the palette, and I'm just going to see how much it pops on the eye, just to see if it pops or not. I'm going to take that right there. Okay, so that's a great brightening up shade. Can you see that? I like that. I really like that. That all of the eyelid would also be amazing. So that was amazing. That is a good addition for sure. Okay, there you go. And then let's take that shade Varis, the metallic medium antique brass shade, and I'm gonna take that. Okay, that's definitely the deepest metallic shade of the palette. I'm just blending in it between the Log shade and the shimmers of the palette. There you go. Okay, so ideally we've used everything. I'm just going back into the Log and deepening up. I'm gonna finish off this eye with some liner and mascara, and I'll get right back for my final thoughts. Let me give you a closer look on my eye look. I really love the way how it's turned out. This is totally my vibes. Like for my daily look, like glam look, office looks, I would absolutely love it. Yes, for sure. Wrapping up the thoughts, yes, I was going with like 2 different eye looks, which I felt like I did, but eventually it just turned out to be pretty much the same kind of look. So if you are going into this palette thinking that you're going to get variety, I feel like this is not the palette for you. But if you love these like neutrally warmer toned shades, it's not like warm tone palette by any means, I would say. It's especially if you are medium and a darker skin tone person, this is going to be like your neutral palette, like absolute neutral palette. Let me give you a comparison from the rest of the palettes that I have from Natasha Denona. Let me show you against the I Need a Nude eyeshadow palette, and you can see by itself how neutral. So this is basic, both of these are neutral palettes. This is definitely more neutral cool tone leaning, and this is definitely more warm tone leaning, but again not super warm tone. Let me show you this against the My Dream palette, which I feel like is the best palette so far for medium dark skin tone. So as you can see against each other, again this is much more versatile just because it has so many more like mid-tone and deeper shades as compared to the new golden palette. but again you can see that yellowness coming from the golden palette as compared to this. And the other palette that I have is the retro palette, which is completely different vibes, just because this is more like mauvier tone, mauvey palette as compared to the golden palette. But all of it are like the same size of the palette and $69 price point. Now let me show you the other palette that I was talking about from Alter Ego, which dupes the Natasha Denona gold palette, and this is actually the Goddess palette. I think I said Sahara. So these are almost like the similar vibes except the greeny teal tones. But you can see I still feel like the mattes in this palette are definitely much more deeper as compared to the golden palette. The other palette which is very similar, which I feel, is the Sigma Ambience palette. And as soon as the golden palette was revealed, my eyes were going into, like, if I dupe the palette, it is going to be similar to the Ambience palette. And you can see the vibes. Ambience palette definitely has more deeper shades and more like that, you know, the reddy, rusty shades also, like these shades. But you can get like a similar vibe with the Ambience palette. So those are like the comparison shades. Let me give you a swatch comparison of the golden palette just so that you can see how much variety you can get from the palette. So let me swatch all the shimmer shades. Let's do all the similar shades first, okay? So Nubia, Fizzy, Kava. Oh my god, all of this looks so similar in my hands. So Nubia, Fizzy, Kava, literally looking the same. Just a little bit of like finish difference, but so similar. Okay. Let's also do Aurum, Alchemist, Oro. Let's just do all of it. Aurum, Alchemist, Oro. We just have 2 more shimmers left. I'm wiping my fingers in between. Let's do Aura, which is that white gold shade, and then Varus, which is a different shimmer. There you go. So if you see the swatches, I feel like these all shades look so very similar, and you can find a little bit of difference with this yellow gold shade, this and this, but rest everything looks very similar on my skin tone, just a little bit of finish difference. Can you see that? Man, you could have given us more variety, Natasha, for sure. Like $69 palette can definitely have more variety. I'm not gonna swatch the cream to powder formula. I'm really sorry about that. Just because I know that's not gonna perform well on my eyes if I swatch it. Let's go with the matte shades next. So Aria, Teak, Sandstone, and Fetish, because we all know Log is the deeper tone shade. So I just wanted to see how the mid-tone shades perform. There you go. No skipping as such, and I can see the undertone difference. Is it too much? No. I had a little bit of glitter glue here, so ignore that. But that is Aria. Then we have Teak, then we have Sandstone, and then we have Flesh. Okay? So that's the difference of variety that you're getting. Now let me just swatch the Log shade, because that's the only shade that I feel like is gonna just show up a little different. So let's do it right next to the other one. So that's Log. So that is the golden palette, you guys. So yes, the quality is there. Do you need 100,000 shades of champagne gold shade? No. So if you're loving the Natasha Denona quality and you just want the palette for the quality, yes, absolutely. Beautiful quality, performs very nicely on the eyes too. I feel like the majority, I feel like you can get the major impact if you go with like 2 shadow looks. Okay, is it gonna look different? No, I don't think so. But at least if you do not mix a lot of shades, it's not gonna look similar. I know these kind of shades do complement my skin tone, but for $69, use my code SMITHYSONY to save 15% off if you're buying this palette. But I would say wait for a sale. Wait for a sale. She'll definitely do some kind of a sale, and buy it on a sale price if you're eyeing this palette. But otherwise, you're not getting much variety. Am I going to use it? Yes. Am I going to customize it? 100% yes, because I definitely want to customize. Do I like these shades? Yes, absolutely 100%. But I am going to customize it just to give us more variety and not similar kind of shades, because I feel like we can get these kind of shades if you have the other palettes in your collection. I do appreciate the packaging a lot. I love this packaging. I feel like this is my favorite packaging that she's done so far. Yes, you will get all the fingerprints. That's not my favorite part, but I love the waves and the ridges. But man, oh man, how similar it can be. If it was me earlier, I would have definitely not bought it. But I still regret not buying the bronze palette from her, which, oh my god, if I can get that palette for a good discount. I did not buy that palette just because it was so similar, and everybody was like complaining that they get like similar kind of bronze shade. I love a good bronze. And I do have the Alter Ego, the dupe version of the bronze palette, which I absolutely love. That's why I did not, plunge over to get that palette. But this is a very similar situation. Yeah, that's my thoughts. Yes, the mattes are different. It's not different enough for a medium tan skin tone. Of course, I feel like it's not gonna be that different on a deeper dark skin tone. Yes, if you are more of a lighter skin tone person, then I feel like these might show up a little different. But shimmers, please give us more variety. Natasha Denona, please do. I love my dream palette. I want something like that in the near future. But that's all for today, guys. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this makeup tutorial, kind of 2 looks, I would say, using this palette. But also the swatches, I feel like it might have been informative for you guys. But that's all for today, guys. If you did like this video, you know what to do. Do give it a thumbs up, and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell so that you're notified every time that I post next. I generally upload 3 videos every single week, every Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 9 AM Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.